So it does indeed seem like the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order dates in the US and Canada have leaked ahead of their official reveal from Nintendo. Now, I am filming this video the day before you are seeing it go live late in the evening. You will see it go live first thing in the morning. There is a possibility that Nintendo has already confirmed the exact US and Canada pre-order dates at the time you are seeing this video, but there's also a chance that that has not happened yet. And if it hasn't, I do want you to see this information so you know exactly what to expect, because while there is a lot of different reports that we have talked about that suggest that there's going to be ample launch stock for Nintendo Switch 2 in comparison to other console launches, we are still talking about the follow-up to 150 million unit seller of the Nintendo Switch, and that console is 8 years plus old at the time Switch 2 is launching, aka you're gonna have a lot of people wanting to upgrade to this thing and get it as soon as possible. And we have a very reliable retail leaker that has successfully given us details on new bundle editions of the Nintendo Switch family of systems ahead of their launches. Essentially every holiday season, I look to this account to essentially just say, hey, whatever they say, it's going to end up happening, because they have that kind of a track record here in terms of their retail connections and things. We are talking about Bill Kuhn. And this user has taken to the internet to reveal what they are seeing in Canada and the US right now. And there was an interesting, probably placeholder date that was floating around from Wario64 online that we'll outline as well. And lastly, a quick snippet of an update on how the Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge has changed, because we do now have official information on what it looks like and how it will be able to determine if a Switch 1 cartridge is being put in or a Switch 2 cartridge to your new Switch 2 system, and what stops the Switch 1 from being able to play Switch 2 cartridges. But we're going to get on the same page with all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick it off over at X, where you can see the following post from Wario64, where he says, it might be nothing like a placeholder date, but Target has their Nintendo Switch console pre-orders on the wish list backend as going up on April 30th. April 30th is the last day of the month, so it could be nothing / a placeholder, just sharing for what was discovered. And you can see the screenshot of what was shown there. But this got people talking that, yeah, April is probably going to indeed be the time frame where we see retailers open up pre-orders. Nintendo has not delayed the June 5th launch, so it does have to be soon. And this would make sense, although placeholder dates often do fall on the last day of the month. And so while this is a Wednesday and maybe seemed like a likely date, because of that crossover with it being the last day of the month, when placeholder dates do just tend to happen in a month you think something's going to happen, it may not have been the best source to go off of. Well, that is where this changes, and Bill Kuhn is a very reliable source, as I mentioned, that we cover for a lot of different retail leaks. But the first post that was widely talked about, probably in a lot of videos you guys may have seen yesterday, was about the April 23rd date valid in Canada. So you can see his first post, which there's an update to this for the US region, specifically calling out other dates. So make sure you're not just thinking this is the same information you saw and hopping out of the video. But first, for our neighbors to the north, and I tend to believe that we may actually be looking at the same date still in the US, but you can see, from what I can see through some Canadian retailers, Nintendo Switch 2 consoles and pre-order bundles should start from April 23rd, 2025, valid in Canada. Date subject to change, can't confirm if it's the same for US. I'll keep you updated if anything changes. So then you have the updated post, which actually is specifically for the USA audience, where he says, through some US retailers, I've found conflicting data for pre-orders start date of the NS2 hardware. For the Switch 2 consoles, April 21st or 30th, depending on the retailer. For accessories like Switch 2 Pro controller, April 30th. I'll keep you updated for any data change. So again, we have this conflicting data with the 30th and or the 21st, and then you also have this Canadian post for the 23rd. So what's really going on here? Well, you might remember that the reason that Nintendo chose to delay the Canada pre-orders at all, because Canada's not dealing with the same trade war and tariff situation that's going on and fluidly changing like we are experiencing here in the US. They basically directly stated that the reason that they were going to do this delay for Canada is to align with the US and wait for Nintendo to essentially decide when they're going live in that region. And what you could probably expect to see happen if Nintendo doesn't go live here in the US on the same dates as Canada, there's going to be a certain percentage of Nintendo fans that are just going to order the Canadian Switch 2 from Amazon to Canada, or, you know, whatever retailer. You're going to just ship it to the US, but you're going to actually order it from Canada and essentially kind of mess up their pre-order situation. So I'm assuming, like, Nintendo of America and really all their retail partners would want to have at least a very similar date, if not exactly the same. And I do think that before the dates are officially communicated, if there is any variance of like 1 or 2 days, like we are seeing this post possibly mention, I think the US would actually go first before Canada, not the other way around, if I just had to guess and speculate, which then leads us to the idea of how likely is the 21st, because what Bill Kuhn is saying here is it's the 21st or the 30th, depending on the retailer. Now, are some of the retailers just showing that April 30th placeholder date, and that's kind of where they're getting some of their info? That is a possibility. I would like to point out Nintendo chiming in on this post, actually stating that Target's API stopped reporting April 30th this morning. Basically, that backend Wario 64 leak we talked about, that plays into this, because he's saying Nintendo, a very, very credible stock tracker account as well, saying that that's not the case anymore, meaning that April 30th is now out of their system. So I would assume that it would stay April 30th if that was indeed going to be the pre-order launch date. So I am now in the mindset of the 21st, basically the week of the 21st, be on high alert. Now, in terms of when Nintendo would announce it officially ahead of time, I would hope that by the end of the week, we at least get a heads up that the beginning of the following week, we will have pre-orders hitting major retailers. I mean, when we learned about it at the Switch 2 Direct, it was exactly 1 week notice advance. So basically, we saw the Direct take place on the 2nd of April, which was a Wednesday, and we saw the next Wednesday, the 9th, was the planned live date for retailers. That obviously didn't happen, but that's kind of the advance window that Nintendo gave us. I'm thinking that something similar would take place here, but if it is the 21st for the US, we are already less than a week out, which leads me to believe Nintendo's either going to announce something tomorrow, or they want to get past that Mario Kart World Direct on Thursday, and maybe they do it at the end of the Direct, literally just slot it in as like a final quick announcement and update on the console, or they want to make a separate media post after the fact. Maybe they do just kind of channel the information through the retailers once again, like we've seen them kind of do with this whole situation so far. They really haven't spoken up too much on it directly, other than statements to retailers and gaming outlets, which then relayed that information. So maybe Nintendo kind of stays quiet on just how much of a mess this whole thing is. We'll see, but Thursday or Friday of this week, I will be very surprised if we don't see an announcement officially from Nintendo by then, especially if we are to believe the 21st potentially for the US, and definitely the 23rd from the sounds of things in Canada. So those are the dates to kind of be on high alert, get a bunch of your accounts already signed in and set up, put your payment information on file, make sure your address is on file and everything's accurate. You're going to want to do that at all your major retailers. Follow me over on X, follow Jake Randall over on X. Some key accounts I will have listed in the description down below that you will want to basically have notifications on for, because they are posting updates as these things go live. And the best thing you can do if you can't get into an in-store situation for a pre-order, like pre-ordering at your local GameStop as soon as they open up in the morning and going there in person, because they're actually reserving in-store inventory. If you can't do something like that, when you're fighting online, your best bet is if you miss wave 1 of a restock, these stock tracker accounts will indeed retweet out live links as they get refreshed, and you can basically catch multiple waves of the pre-orders hitting. The last thing I did want to briefly mention on the way of pre-orders is something I've mentioned in a few previous videos, but want to make sure as many people see this as possible. Make sure you go to the link in my description. Go register your interest to buy from the MyNintendo Store. This is the perfect backup plan to have, because according to Nintendo, they are doing the pre-order from their own direct store on May 8th. So I do believe pre-orders from the retailers, major retailers, will go live before then, but at least you have an invite specifically that's targeted to not let scalpers buy the console, because you have to have a 12-month paid membership of NSO and 50 hours of gameplay as of April 2nd, 2025, meaning people can't start doing this now. You would have had to already be a Nintendo gamer on your Switch at some point and paid for an online membership just to be able to get an invite for this thing. They're saying the invite will last for 72 hours after they send it out. I would check immediately on May 8th when they start sending out those invitations, but first comes, first served basis, and we don't know what their total stock levels will look like, but I'm assuming they've allocated a decent amount of inventory to themselves. And if you are not able to secure one from a retailer, a Walmart, Best Buy, Target, all of that stuff, well, then at least you have a fallback plan that you can get it straight from the Nintendo Store. You can register your interest for the base console or the bundle edition with Mario Kart included. So kind of cool updates there on the pre-order situation. Doesn't seem like we have to wait too much longer. Last very brief thing I want to cover in this video has to do with just a new little tidbit of information for the Switch 2, because we actually have from this post from Nintendo confirmed Nintendo Switch 2 game cards do have a notch. So, you know, we've kind of been wondering this entire time, is it going to be something like a 3DS style notch where you had like that larger, you know, different form factor of the cartridge to stop it from being able to go into a DS, and you know how, you know, what game is what essentially from just looking at the cartridge. Well, this cartridge, surprisingly, as we learned, Nintendo is going essentially with the exact same cartridge form factor, but it is all red instead of a black cartridge. Well, now we can actually see the closer up detail that there is a little notch carved out here that will differentiate it from the Switch 1 base cartridge. So a little bit of an inside baseball thing that actually, I think this is coming to us from that $5 or $10 instruction manual that Nintendo is marketing as a game that they should have had as a pack-in. It is what it is, but essentially the welcome tour for Nintendo Switch 2, that's where this information was actually discovered, and it's just a nice little tidbit that now we know how the cartridges are going to slot into Nintendo's next generation hardware. But let me know how you're feeling about everything as we inch closer to the pre-order live dates. Are you thinking that the 21st for the US and or 23rd for Canada, is that something that you're going to try to be basically watching out for? Also, accessories going live on the 30th, I should circle back to from Bill Coon's post. Switch 2 Pro controller probably going to be in very limited demand. It looks like it's just coming to us from Cambodia from what I can see online. And there's a lot of talk about accessories and physical games being very hard to find around the launch of this thing in comparison to the console. So, you know, maybe keep an eye on stuff like that. Are you going to be trying to get this stuff day one? Are you still waiting back on the sidelines to see more, maybe from the Mario Kart World Direct? Or is there anything that you haven't seen so far that you need to see in order to kind of be sold on the console at this $450 and or $500 price point, depending, of course, on if you go with the bundle or not? But make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. With that, I've been Sunbro. You've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.